Nicole Adams glanced at her phone again. 7:42 p.m. She sighed quietly and slipped it back into her purse before anyone noticed. The birthday candles had already been blown out. Half the cake was gone. Her friends were laughing over old stories, doing everything they could to make the evening feel special. Nicole laughed with them. But every few minutes, her eyes drifted to the restaurant entrance. She was still waiting for someone. "He promised he'd come," she whispered. It wasn't just a promise. In the 3 years she'd lived in Seoul, the elderly man had never let her down. Not once. He had become the closest thing she had to family, in a city that had once felt impossibly lonely. Tonight, he had looked her in the eyes and said, "Don't start without me." One of her friends noticed the disappointment she was trying so hard to hide.
Maybe traffic is worse than usual.
"Nicole," she said gently, "maybe traffic is worse than usual." Nicole forced a smile. Maybe. She reached for her phone, finally deciding to call him. Before she could dial, the restaurant manager appeared at the door.
Your guest is here.
"Ms. Adams?" Nicole looked up.
Your guest is here.
"Your guest is here."
Your
Relief
guest is
spread
here.
across her face. I knew he wouldn't miss it. She stood, straightened her dress, and walked toward the entrance. The moment the doors opened, the entire restaurant went strangely quiet. Outside, a convoy of black luxury sedans had pulled up to the curb. Restaurant employees exchanged nervous glances before bowing respectfully. A few customers instinctively stood to get a better look. The rear door of the last car opened. A tall Korean man stepped out. His movements were calm, almost effortless, as he adjusted the sleeve of his charcoal suit. In one hand, he carried a neatly wrapped birthday gift. Nicole stopped walking. She knew that face. Almost everyone in Korea did. Whispers rippled through the restaurant. "Isn't that Chang Jun Lee, the chairman of Lee Group?" Nicole's heart skipped. No, that wasn't possible. She had never met Chang Jun Lee. She had certainly never invited him to her birthday. Yet he walked straight toward her as though he belonged there. When he finally stopped in front of her, he offered the gift with a small, courteous smile.
Happy birthday.
"Happy birthday, Miss Adams." Nicole stared at him, completely at a loss. "I'm sorry." She shook her head apologetically.
I think there has been a mistake.
"I think there's been a mistake." For a moment, Chang Jun Lee said nothing. His eyes wandered across the room. The balloons, the half-eaten cake, the smiling faces that had now fallen completely silent. Then he looked back at Nicole. A faint smile touched his lips. "No," he said calmly.
No, I'm
exactly
exactly
where I was told to be." Nicole felt the air leave her lungs. Only one question remained. Who had sent one of Korea's youngest billionaire to her birthday? Nicole stared at the man in front of her, convinced there had to be some kind of mistake. The neatly wrapped birthday gift in his hands. The line of black luxury sedans outside the restaurant. The whispers echoing through the room. None of it made sense. She offered him an apologetic smile. "I'm sorry, but I don't remember sending you an invitation." For the first time that evening, Chang Jun Lee looked slightly puzzled. "You didn't?" Nicole blinked. "I didn't?" He shook his head. "My uncle gave me your invitation this afternoon. He asked me to come in his place." A strange feeling settled in Nicole's chest. "Your uncle?" "Professor Kang." Her eyes widened. For a second, the noise inside the restaurant disappeared. "Professor Kang?" Chang Jun nodded. "You know him." Nicole let out a small, disbelieving laugh. "I should. I spent 4 years trying to impress him with my essays." The corner of Chang Jun's mouth lifted ever so slightly.
Nicole Adams.
"Then you must be Nicole Adams." She looked genuinely surprised. You know my name? "My uncle speaks highly of you."
My uncle speaks
Nicole
highly of
shook
you.
her head. "I didn't even know he had a
I didn't even know
nephew.
he had a nephew.
He doesn't usually talk about family."
He doesn't usually talk
No,
about family.
Nicole replied softly. "He never talks about titles either." She smiled to herself. He always said that a person's character should introduce them before their achievements ever could. Chang Jun's expression changed. Those were his uncle's exact words. He had heard them countless times growing up. Yet hearing someone else repeat them so naturally caught him off guard. Nicole looked past him toward the entrance. Where is Professor Kang? I thought he'd be here. Silence settled between them. He wasn't feeling well this afternoon. Her smile faded. What happened? He was admitted to the hospital. Nicole's heart dropped. The hospital? He asked me not to tell you until after your birthday dinner. She lowered her eyes and sighed. That sounds exactly like him. She knew why. If she'd known earlier, she would have left everything behind to sit beside him. That was the kind of relationship they had. Professor Kang had been more than a lecturer. When Nicole first arrived in Korea at 20, everything felt unfamiliar. The language, the weather, the loneliness. During her first semester, she had struggled more than she ever admitted to anyone. One rainy afternoon after class, Professor Kang noticed her sitting alone outside the library. Instead of asking what was wrong, he quietly placed a warm cup of coffee beside her. You don't have to tell me what's troubling you, he'd said, but you also don't have to carry it alone. That single act of kindness had changed everything. Over the years, he became the mentor she called whenever life felt too heavy. He celebrated when she graduated. He encouraged her when she opened her own interior design studio. Whenever she doubted herself, he reminded her why she had started. And every birthday, he never forgot. Nicole looked back at Chang Jun. Is he going to be all right? The doctors believe he'll recover, he answered. They're keeping him overnight for observation. Only then did Nicole notice the gift still resting in his hands. For you, he said. He insisted I deliver it personally. She accepted it carefully, almost afraid to unwrap it. Thank you. I also have one more request. From Professor Kang? Chang Jun nodded. He told me not to leave until I was sure you'd smiled tonight. Nicole laughed despite herself. That really does sound like him. The tension that had filled the restaurant slowly melted away. Her friends, who had been quietly watching the exchange, finally relaxed. One of them smiled at Chang Jun. Well, since Professor Kang sent you, I think that makes you our guest now. Another laughed. You can't leave before cake. Chang Jun glanced at his watch. His schedule had been planned down to the minute. A conference call in 30 minutes. Documents waiting for his approval. 3 executives expecting him at headquarters. Normally, he would have apologized and left without hesitation. Instead, his eyes wandered around the room. The decorations weren't expensive. The balloons were beginning to lose air. The birthday cake leaned slightly to one side. Nothing was perfect, yet everyone looked happy, genuinely happy. No one wanted anything from him. No one was trying to impress him. For once, nobody cared that he was Chang Jun Lee, chairman of one of Korea's largest companies. Nicole noticed his hesitation. You don't have to stay, she said gently. I know you're probably very busy. He met her eyes. I can spare an hour. A chorus of cheers erupted from the table. One of Nicole's friends immediately pulled out another chair. Crisis averted. Laughter spread through the room. Chang Jun found himself smiling before he realized it. The next hour passed differently than he expected. Nobody asked him about business. Nobody requested favors. Nobody mentioned investments or magazine interviews. Instead, they argued over who had stolen the last slice of pizza. They teased Nicole about accidentally setting off the fire alarm during her university graduation party. They laughed at old photos on someone's phone. At one point, Nicole caught Chang Jun quietly watching everyone. What? He looked away. Nothing. She smiled knowingly. You've never been to a birthday like this before. After a brief silence, he admitted, No. She tilted her head. Not even your own? He looked at the untouched candle sitting beside the cake. I stopped celebrating birthdays a long time ago. Nicole didn't ask why. Some answers deserved time. By the time dinner ended, the restaurant had grown quiet. Guests from other tables had gone home. The streets outside glistened beneath the city lights after a light evening rain. Nicole stood and picked up her handbag. I'm going to the hospital. Chang Jun nodded. I'll drive you. You don't have to. I promised my uncle I'd make sure you got there. She smiled gratefully. Then, thank you. The drive across Seoul was unusually quiet. Neither of them seemed in a hurry to fill the silence. When they reached Professor Kang's room, Nicole stepped inside first. The older man was asleep. Machines hummed softly beside his bed. She smiled with quiet relief. Walking closer, she gently adjusted the blanket that had slipped from his shoulder. Then she leaned down and whispered, "You missed my birthday, but I'll forgive you this once." A faint smile crossed her face as she carefully brushed a strand of gray hair away from his forehead. "Just get better, Professor." Standing silently at the doorway, Chang Jun watched the scene unfold. He had never seen his uncle look so peaceful. A nurse passing by smiled when she noticed him. "She came." Chang Jun nodded. "She did." The nurse looked toward Nicole before speaking again. "Professor Kang talks about her the way most fathers talk about their daughters." Chang Jun looked through the small window in the door. Nicole was still standing beside the bed, smiling softly at the man who had changed both of their lives in completely different ways. For the first time that night, he understood why his uncle had sent him. The morning sun filtered through the hospital curtains, painting soft streaks of light across the room. Nicole stood by the window with a cup of coffee in her hands, watching Seoul slowly wake up. It had been a long night. She had barely slept. Every time a nurse entered Professor Kang's room, she looked up instinctively, afraid something had changed. When the older man finally stirred, Nicole was the first to notice. "Professor." He blinked a few times before smiling. "I was beginning to think hospitals had become more beautiful." Nicole folded her arms. "Don't even try to charm your way out of this." Professor Kang chuckled. "I suppose I'm in trouble." "You disappeared on my birthday." "I didn't disappear. You ended up in the hospital and told everyone not to tell me." "I did." Nicole sighed. "You know I would have come." "I know." "Then why didn't you call me?" Professor Kang looked at her with the same patient smile he had worn in every lecture hall. "Because birthdays should be spent making memories." He glanced toward the hospital bed. "Not worrying about stubborn old professors." Nicole shook her head, trying not to smile. "You always think you're right. I've had 67 years of practice." She laughed despite herself. From the other side of the room, Chang Jun watched the exchange quietly. He had never seen his uncle laugh this much during a hospital stay. More importantly, he had never seen anyone speak to him with such effortless affection. No formalities, just genuine concern. Professor Kang noticed his nephew standing silently by the door. "Chang Jun." "Yes, uncle?" "You're looking at us like we're characters in a novel." "I was wondering who taught whom." Nicole laughed. "Oh, trust me, I never won that battle." Professor Kang looked at the gift resting on the bedside table. "You still haven't opened it." Nicole glanced at the neatly wrapped box. "I wanted to wait until you were awake." "Then don't keep an old man waiting." She carefully untied the ribbon. Inside wasn't jewelry, or anything expensive. Instead, she found a black fountain pen resting inside a velvet-lined case. She picked it up carefully. Her eyes widened. "Professor? I thought you gave this away years ago. I was waiting for the right person." Nicole ran her fingers gently across the pen. She recognized it immediately. Professor Kang had used it throughout her university years. Every essay he marked, every recommendation letter he wrote, every encouraging note he left in the margins. "This pen believed in more students than I ever could." He smiled. "I think it's time it belonged to someone else." Beneath the pen lay a folded card. Nicole unfolded it carefully. In Professor Kang's familiar handwriting were just 2 lines. "Design beautiful spaces. Never forget to build a beautiful life." Nicole smiled through tears. "I'll treasure this forever." "I know you will." A nurse entered the room a few moments later. "Professor Kang, the doctor will be here shortly." He nodded before looking back at Nicole. "You should get to work." She checked the time and sighed. "I have a presentation in less than an hour." "You'll do well." "I hope so." As she reached for her portfolio, her phone vibrated. Her expression fell. My taxi canceled. She refreshed the app. Another cancellation. Then another. The rain must have everyone requesting rides. She forced a smile. I'll find another way. I'll drive you. Nicole looked up. Chang Jun had spoken so casually that it took her a second to realize he meant it. Oh, you don't have to. I know. I couldn't ask that. You didn't. He picked up her portfolio before she could protest. You'll be late. Professor Kang hid a smile behind his coffee cup. I think your ride is waiting. Nicole looked from one man to the other, then surrendered. Thank you. The rain had eased into a gentle drizzle by the time they reached the parking garage. Nicole stopped beside a sleek black sedan. She looked around. Where's your driver? I gave him the day off. You drive yourself? Most days. She smiled as she fastened her seatbelt. I thought billionaires sat in the back. Without taking his eyes off the road, Chang Jun replied, I prefer knowing where I'm going. Nicole laughed. That sounded much deeper than you probably intended. For a brief moment, he laughed too. It wasn't loud or practiced, just genuine. The silence that followed no longer felt awkward. It felt comfortable. So, Chang Jun asked after a few minutes, why interior design? Nicole looked out the window at the passing streets. My parents always said a house becomes a home because of the people inside it. She smiled softly. I suppose I wanted to create places where people felt they belonged. He nodded. My uncle once said something similar. I'm not surprised. He said people remember how a place made them feel long after they've forgotten what it looked like. Nicole smiled. That sounds exactly like him. 20 minutes later, they pulled up outside a modest, 3-story building. A simple sign read, Adam's Studio. Chang Jun looked at it with quiet surprise. This is yours? Nicole nodded proudly. It's small. She laughed. But every chair, every light fixture, every wall color inside was chosen by me. She stepped out of the car before leaning back through the open door. Thank you. It was only a ride. It was still kind. She smiled one last time before disappearing into the building. Chang Jun waited until she had safely gone inside before driving away. An hour later, he walked into the executive boardroom at Lee Group. A presentation was already underway. The final item, one executive announced, is the renovation of the Hanul Heritage Hotel. Images of the historic property appeared on the large screen. We've narrowed the proposals to 3 interior design firms. The first logo appeared, then the second. Finally, the third logo filled the screen. Adam's Studio. Chang Jun's eyes lingered on the screen for a fraction longer than usual. He didn't say a word. No one around the table noticed the change in his expression. But for the first time since leaving the hospital, business had suddenly become personal. The conference room fell silent as the final slide disappeared from the screen. Chang Jun leaned back in his chair, his fingers lightly resting on the polished oak table. These are the 3 finalists? He asked. Yes, Chairman. The executive in charge of the renovation nodded confidently. We've spent the last month reviewing over 40 proposals. These are the strongest. Chang Jun's eyes returned to the screen. Adam's Studio. He recognized the logo immediately, but he said nothing. One executive cleared his throat. Our recommendation is Studio Maison. They've completed several luxury hotel renovations across Asia. Another executive agreed. They're the safest choice. Chang Jun remained quiet. Then he asked a question no one expected. Have any of you actually visited the hotel? Confused glances spread across the room. One by one, they shook their heads. We've reviewed the proposals, someone replied. That wasn't my question. His voice remained calm. Have you walked through the building? No, Chairman. Chang Jun closed the file in front of him, then postponed the decision. The executives exchanged puzzled looks. I'd like to see each firm's presentation in person. The meeting ended 10 minutes later. As everyone filed out, his assistant caught up with him. Chairman Lee, that's unusual. What is? You normally approve recommendations without requesting another round. Chang Jun slipped his hands into his pockets. I don't make decisions based on photographs. His assistant smiled knowingly. I'll arrange the presentations. Across the city, Nicole stood inside an empty hotel ballroom studying the faded walls. Her client watched nervously. So, what do you think? Nicole slowly walked across the room. She ran her fingers along the cracked wooden paneling before looking up at the tall windows overlooking the Han River. It's beautiful. The owner frowned. It is? It just forgot. Forgot what? That people used to fall in love here. The older man looked around the room. For years, he had only seen peeling paint and worn carpets. Nicole saw memories. I don't want to modernize this place. She smiled. I want people to feel its history the moment they walk inside. The owner found himself smiling. You sound exactly like Professor Kang. Nicole laughed. He'd be very pleased to hear that. Her phone vibrated. An unfamiliar number. Hello? Ms. Adams? Speaking. This is Lee Group. Nicole straightened immediately. We'd like to invite Adams Studio to present your proposal for the Hanyul Heritage Hotel renovation. She blinked. I'm sorry. I thought submissions had already closed. They have. Our chairman requested personal presentations from all finalists. Nicole thanked the caller before ending the call. For several seconds, she simply stood there. She had made the shortlist. Not one, but she had another chance. That evening, Nicole stopped by the hospital before heading home. Professor Kang was sitting up in bed reading a novel. I knew that smile meant something. Nicole laughed. Am I that predictable? You've been predictable since your first year. She handed him a cup of tea. My studio made the final presentations. His eyes lit up. I never doubted you. I haven't won yet. You've already won. Nicole frowned. I have? Professor Kang closed his book. Success isn't getting the project. It's becoming the kind of designer people are willing to trust with it. Nicole smiled thoughtfully. You always make everything sound simple. Because most things are. A quiet knock interrupted them. Chang Jun stepped into the room carrying fresh fruit. I hope I'm not interrupting. Professor Kang smiled. Perfect timing. Nicole looked surprised. You came back? I was checking on my uncle. She smiled. That's good. Professor Kang looked from one to the other before speaking. Nicole has good news. Chang Jun turned toward her. The hotel presentation? She blinked. You know about it? He nodded. Lee Group owns Hanyul Heritage. Nicole suddenly remembered. Of course. It belonged to Lee Group. A brief silence settled between them. Well, she laughed nervously. I suppose I'll see you again sooner than I expected. Chang Jun gave a polite smile. I suppose you will. Neither of them noticed Professor Kang watching quietly from his bed. For the first time in many years, his nephew had come to the hospital twice in one day. Not because anyone asked him to, but because he wanted to. Professor Kang smiled to himself. Sometimes life didn't need to be pushed. Sometimes, it only needed the right introduction. Nicole barely slept the night before her presentation. Not because she doubted her work, but because opportunities like this didn't come twice. Before sunrise, she was already inside Adam's studio, reviewing every drawing one last time. Fabric samples covered one table. Color palettes covered another. Her team arrived one by one, surprised to find her already there. You've been here long? One of the designers asked. Nicole smiled. Long enough to drink 2 cups of coffee and convince myself I'm not nervous. That earned a few laughs. One of her junior designers looked around the studio before speaking. Whatever happens today, thank you. Nicole frowned. For what? For believing a small studio could compete with firms 10 times our size. Nicole looked around the room. At the people who had trusted her dream enough to make it their own. We're already competing, she said softly. The results just haven't caught up yet. An hour later, she walked into Lee Group headquarters, carrying nothing but her portfolio. The receptionist welcomed her before directing her to the executive conference room. As the doors opened, she immediately recognized Chang Jun seated among the panel. Their eyes met briefly. He acknowledged her with the same polite nod he had given every presenter before her. Nothing more. Oddly, she appreciated that. The moderator welcomed everyone before inviting Nicole to begin. She connected her laptop to the projector. The first image filled the screen. The Hanwell Heritage Hotel. Built nearly 70 years earlier. Elegant. Historic. Forgotten. Nicole looked around the room. I don't believe this building needs to become something new. She paused. I believe it deserves to remember what it has always been. The room became noticeably quieter. Instead of discussing marble imported from Europe or extravagant lighting fixtures, Nicole spoke about emotion, about preserving history, about creating spaces where strangers could feel unexpectedly at home. Every design decision had a reason. Every material told part of the building's story. When she finished, the executives began asking questions. Some challenged her proposed budget. Others questioned whether younger travelers would appreciate such a traditional design. Nicole answered each question with patience. Never defensive, never rushed. When one executive suggested replacing the old reading room with a luxury cocktail lounge, Nicole smiled politely. I wouldn't. The executive raised an eyebrow. And why not? Because every historic building deserves one room where people can simply breathe. She looked at the rendering behind her. Luxury can always be added. But once you erase a building's soul, you rarely get it back. Silence settled over the room. Several executives quietly wrote notes. Chang Jun remained silent, not because he wasn't paying attention, because he wanted his opinion to carry no more weight than anyone else's. After nearly an hour, the moderator thanked Nicole for her presentation. She gathered her portfolio, bowed respectfully, and left the room. Only after the doors closed did one executive finally speak. I didn't expect that. Another nodded. Neither did I. A third executive adjusted his glasses. She understands the building better than anyone we've interviewed. The room turned toward Chang Jun. Chairman Lee? He looked down at Nicole's proposal before closing the folder. My opinion isn't important. Several executives looked confused. He continued calmly. The committee selected these finalists. The committee should choose the winner. No one argued. Outside the building, Nicole finally released the breath she had been holding. She had done everything she could, whether she won or lost. She knew she had presented the best version of herself. That evening, she stopped by the hospital before going home. Professor Kang was sitting comfortably in bed, reading. He smiled the moment he saw her. Well? Nicole laughed. You always skip the greeting. I'm old. I've earned the right. She pulled up a chair. I think it went well. Professor Kang closed his book. I never asked how it went. She looked puzzled. No? I asked how you felt. Nicole thought about it for a moment. Then she smiled. Proud. Professor Kang smiled back. Then you've already succeeded. Before Nicole could answer, her phone began to ring. An unfamiliar number. She answered. Hello? Her expression slowly changed. Professor Kang quietly watched her. She listened for nearly a minute. Then, a smile spread across her face. She lowered the phone and looked at her former professor. We got it. For a brief moment, Professor Kang simply closed his eyes. Not because he was surprised, because he had never doubted her. Nicole laughed while struggling to hold back her tears. I can't believe it. Professor Kang reached across and gently squeezed her hand. I can. Standing quietly outside the room with a bouquet of fresh flowers in his hands, Chang Jun had heard every word. Without saying a single thing, he smiled. Not because Lee Group had found its designer, but because Nicole Adams had just achieved the dream she had earned long before he ever walked into her birthday dinner. For 3 days, Nicole barely had time to celebrate. Her team threw themselves into planning meetings, site visits, and design revisions. The tiny studio that had once been quiet was suddenly alive with energy. Coffee cups piled up on every desk. Sketches covered the walls. Everyone worked with the excitement of people who knew their lives were about to change. Nicole loved every minute of it. They had done it. Adam's studio had won the Hananiel Heritage Hotel project. Their biggest contract yet. Their biggest chance yet. Then, on the fourth morning, everything changed. One of her designers walked into the office holding a tablet. Nicole. His voice was unusually quiet. I think you should see this. Nicole took the tablet. The headline filled the screen. Chairman Lee's mystery woman wins Lee Group hotel contract. Below it was a photograph. Chang Jun opening the passenger door of his car for her outside the hospital. Nicole's expression changed. Another article was already circulating. Romance or favoritism? Questions surround Lee Group's decision. She continued reading. Someone had pieced together everything. Her birthday dinner, the hospital visit, her meetings at Lee Group, Professor Kang's restaurant. Even photographs of Chang Jun and Nicole leaving the same places at different times. None of the articles accused her directly. They didn't have to. The comments did. Now we know why a small studio won. Talent helps, dating the chairman helps more. The committee never stood a chance. Nicole slowly locked the tablet. The studio became silent. Finally, one of the junior designers spoke. I know you earned this. Nicole looked at her. I do too. The young woman hesitated. I'm just afraid. She looked around the room. People won't believe any of us earned it. Nicole looked at her team. 5 years. 5 years of late nights. 5 years of rejected proposals. 5 years of clients who told them they were too small. And now, when they had finally won, people were trying to turn their achievement into a love story. Nicole stood. Then we don't give them anything else to talk about. She picked up her coat. Where are you going? To Lee Group. Lee Group headquarters was surrounded by reporters. Camera flashes exploded outside the entrance. Questions followed Nicole through the lobby. Ms. Adams, are you dating Chairman Lee? Did your relationship influence the hotel contract? Did Chairman Lee personally choose your studio? Nicole didn't answer. She kept walking. By the time she reached the chairman's office, Chang Jun was already waiting. I was about to call you. Nicole placed the tablet on his desk. They're saying I slept my way into a contract. His jaw tightened. I know. They're saying your committee was never independent. I know. And tomorrow they'll find something else. Chang Jun stepped toward her. I'll deal with it. Nicole shook her head. No. He stopped. You don't get to deal with this for me. Nicole, I don't want another statement from you. I don't want you telling the press I'm talented. I don't want you defending me. She looked directly at him. Because every time you defend me, they will say you had something to defend. Silence. Nicole took a breath. I didn't spend 5 years building Adam's studio, just to become Chairman Lee's girlfriend who got lucky. Chang Jun's expression softened. I know. Do you? Yes? He walked toward his desk. Then he picked up the hotel contract. I know exactly what you built. He placed it down. And I'm not going to take that away from you by fixing this myself. Nicole looked at him. Then what are you going to do? I'm going to remove myself. She frowned. From what? Everything. The next morning, Lee Group released an official statement. Chairman Lee Chang-jun would immediately recuse himself from every matter concerning the Hanel Heritage Hotel project. He would have no role in design approvals, no role in contract negotiations, no communication with the selection committee, no authority over the independent review. The decision shocked the press. But that wasn't the end. 3 hours later, Lee Group announced something even bigger. The company's board had requested an independent investigation into the original selection process. Nicole's team froze when they heard the news. One designer looked at her. Does this mean we're losing the hotel? Nicole didn't answer immediately. I don't know. For the first time since winning, she genuinely didn't know what would happen. That evening, she went home early. Her contract sat on the table. She stared at it. She had worked her entire life for this, and now someone else could decide whether she deserved to keep it. Her phone rang. Chang Jun. She answered. Hello? Are you okay? Nicole laughed softly. No. A pause. Do you want me to come over? She looked toward the door, then shook her head. No. Okay. I need to know something. What? If the board cancels the contract, she swallowed. Will you fight for me? There was silence on the other end. Then Chang Jun answered. No. Nicole closed her eyes. For a moment, something inside her sank. Then he continued. I won't fight for you. I'll make sure they fight fairly. Nicole opened her eyes. And if they decide against me, then I'll accept their decision. Even if you think they're wrong? Yes. She was quiet. Why? Because if I use my position to make sure you win. He paused. Then the people accusing you were right. Nicole's eyes filled with tears. You're infuriating. I know. But, she smiled. Thank you. 2 days later, the independent review began. The board examined every score, every evaluation. Every committee member was interviewed separately. Every proposal was reviewed again. And Nicole wasn't allowed to participate. For 3 days, Adam's studio waited. They couldn't change anything. Couldn't defend themselves. Couldn't influence anyone. They could only wait. On the 4th morning, Nicole's phone rang. She answered. Hello? Ms. Adams? Yes? This is the chairman of the independent review panel. Nicole sat up. We've completed the review. Her heart began pounding. I understand. There was a pause. I think you should come to Lee Group. Nicole looked at her team. Why? Because the board has reached a decision. The conference room was packed. Board members sat on one side. Independent reviewers on the other. Nicole entered with her team. Chang Jun was already there. But he wasn't sitting at the head of the table. He sat at the back. As promised. He had no vote. The review chairman stood. Ms. Adams. Nicole nodded. We have completed our investigation. He opened a folder. The original selection process was conducted properly. Nicole's team exchanged glances. The committee's scores were recorded before Chairman Lee reviewed the shortlisted proposals. Nicole's breath caught. And there is no evidence that Chairman Lee influenced the result. A board member stood. Therefore, he looked directly at Nicole. The board sees no legitimate reason to terminate the contract. Nicole's eyes widened, but the chairman wasn't finished. In fact, the independent review identified something else. He turned another page. Adams Studio's proposal received the highest score in every major category. A stunned silence filled the room. Design, functionality, cost efficiency, sustainability, guest experience. Adams Studio ranked first. Nicole couldn't speak. The chairman closed the folder. Your contract remains fully valid. Then he added, and the board has unanimously approved an expanded design role for Adams Studio. Nicole stared at him. Expanded? You were originally hired to design the interior experience. He smiled. Following the independent review, the board has asked Adams Studio to lead the hotel's complete guest experience design. Her team looked at Nicole. Nobody moved. Then one of them whispered, "We just got bigger." Nicole laughed through her tears. Apparently, the room erupted in applause. Nicole looked across the room. Then her eyes found Chang Jun. He wasn't applauding loudly. He was simply smiling, proudly, from a distance, exactly where he belonged. That evening, Nicole returned to the studio. Her team had already turned the place upside down. Someone had brought cake. Someone else had bought champagne. Sketches covered the walls again. But this time, nobody was afraid. The contract was theirs. Their work was theirs. Their future was theirs. Nicole stood in the middle of the room. 5 years ago, everyone became quiet. I started Adam's studio because I wanted to prove that a small team could build something extraordinary. She looked around. Today, I don't think we need to prove that anymore. The room erupted. Nicole laughed. Then her phone vibrated. A message. I'm outside. She smiled. She walked downstairs. Chang Jun was waiting outside the building. No security. No assistants. No driver. Just him. Nicole crossed her arms. So, you came all the way here. I did. Why? He smiled. I wanted to congratulate you. She raised an eyebrow. You already did. Not properly. He reached into his coat. Nicole's expression changed. He pulled out a small box. She stared at it. Chang Jun, before you panic. She laughed. That's not helping. He opened the box. Inside was not a ring. It was a small brass key. Nicole looked confused. What is this? Your new office. She blinked. My what? I bought the building next door. Her mouth fell open. You did what? He laughed. I didn't buy it for you. She narrowed her eyes. Then why? Because Adam's studio is expanding. She stared at him. And before you start yelling, I'm already considering it. He smiled. I bought it at market price. No special treatment, no favors, no connection to Lee Group. Nicole looked at the key, then at him. You're ridiculous. I've been told. She laughed. Then her expression softened. You know. What? You didn't save me. No. You didn't fix this for me. No. You didn't make them choose me. No. She stepped closer. You just made sure I had the chance to stand on my own. Chang Jun looked at her. That's all I ever wanted. Nicole smiled. That's not entirely true. He raised an eyebrow. What else did you want? She took the key from his hand. You. He went still. Nicole smiled. But on one condition. Anything. My success stays mine. Always. And your company stays out of my studio. Agreed. And, she paused. You stop acting like you have to protect me from everything. Chang Jun smiled. I'll try. Good. She stepped closer. Because I don't want a man who stands in front of me. She looked into his eyes. I want one who walks beside me. His expression softened. I can do that. Nicole smiled. Then walk. They began walking down the street together. The city lights reflected against the windows of Adam's studio. Inside, Nicole's team was still celebrating. Above them, the name on the building remained unchanged. Adam's studio. 5 years ago, it had been a tiny office with 2 desks and a dream. Now it was the beginning of something much bigger. Nicole looked at Chang Jun. Where are we going? He smiled. Somewhere I can finally ask you a question I've been wanting to ask for a long time. She looked at him suspiciously. What question? He stopped walking, turned toward her, and smiled. Nicole Adams. She laughed. You're making this dramatic. I've been waiting. For what? He held out his hand. Will you have dinner with me? She stared at him. That's the big question? For tonight. She smiled. Yes. He took her hand, and together they walked into the city. Not as chairman and designer, not as rescuer and woman in need of saving, not as 2 people whose lives had been arranged by someone else, but as 2 people who had chosen each other. The studio behind them had a new project, a new building, a new future, and Nicole had something she'd never had before. Not proof that she could succeed on her own. She already knew that. She had something better. The freedom to choose who she wanted beside her, when she did. And this time, She chose him. If you enjoyed this story, I have something special for you. One of my previous stories is now available as a complete book, with even more romance, emotion, and unforgettable moments. If you'd like to read it, check out the link in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.